1, 2, about 5 students, the rest is the staff, faculty. Okay.
Ну да. Да.
Is it okay to start now?
Sure, start. Yes.
Good afternoon all. I hope you understand my English. I promise you next time when I come, I will give a lecture in Russian. Or if you don't understand, I can speak in Chinese. Yes? No. For everything that I am going to speak today, I have already copied the PowerPoint file, the PDF file, the Word file, everything into a folder here called Minen, and that is already in this computer. So you are more than welcome to just copy without taking photos. Is that okay? Yes. The topic that I am going to speak today is something related to publishing in international journals. I have chosen this particular topic because in the last 15 years, wherever I went, doesn't matter which country, whether it is a university or a hospital or a research organization, they always wanted me to speak on the topic related to publishing in SCI and SSCI journals. And they particularly like to hear that from me because I have published more than 220 papers in those journals already. But don't do that because you'll be losing hair if you do that. All right, so just in case you want to know who I am, this is my name. You know, Chinese usually put their surnames at the beginning. But here I'm using the so-called Western style. So Lo is my last name. But my friends, they all call me Seng Kai, so you're more than welcome to just call my name. It's up to you. And I did my first degree in Australia, Sydney. I do not have a master's degree. And then I did my PhD in the United States in California, Berkeley. And then I was teaching in US, Australia, Hong Kong for more than 20 years. And I am now the Associate Vice President and also the Dean of the Graduate School in a very good university in education. If you heard about the QS ranking, we, in the last few years, we have always been in the top 10, top 20, something like that, in education. In fact, if I tell you who are the top 10 in education, they are Harvard, Stanford, Cambridge, Oxford, Columbia Teachers College, etc., etc. You know it is so tough to be in the top 10. And we are very proud of our colleagues because we are there. And one reason why we can be there is because many of our colleagues are very active in research and they are very productive in terms of writing research papers in good journals. And that's why I have chosen this particular topic to speak on today, if you don't mind. So let me start. How to get rid of these?
F5.
Sorry?
On keyboard.
Right. It is very warm. The heat comes to my heart because I'm very happy to be here. All right. First question. We published in international journals because we do research, of course. You have to do research before you can publish. Why research? That's because these days, the international trend is evidence-based policy, evidence-based education. In fact, no matter what disciplinary area you are in, we are always talking about evidence-based this time. Then it comes another question. Evidence-based, so evidence. Where does evidence come from? Obviously, you can do your own research, you do it. But before you do it, you have to read the literature. You have to know, you have to understand what other people have already done, so that your research is trying to fill the gap, trying to find something new that previously researchers have not discovered yet, or some research questions that is very specific to your country, your state. Is Nizhny Novgorod a state, a province, a city? City, all right? Something very specific to your city. So, before you do, you read. Now, so far okay? Good? Please look at this particular sentence. This sentence is a very common sentence that you will find in any journal paper. For example, it was found that, say, using a new teaching method can lead to achieving higher mathematics scores in, for example, an open examination. This is a typical sentence. Of course, you can insert anything here, and then after the sentence, they probably quote a reference, Smith 2017, or Brown 2013, something like that. This is not specific to education. In any disciplinary area, you'll see something similar. For example, in a genetics or biology journal, you might see a gene was found to be positively associated with some behavioral problem. And that, again, they will give one or two or more references. So, it seems very logical. It seems very conclusive because someone have already done the research before. There's no plagiarism. They quote the reference, so no plagiarism. So seemingly it sounds okay. Not quite. Why? I'm giving you one very classical example, which is a typical example that lecturers will give in classrooms. This is already quite old, but this is classical. And in a lecture, many lecturers will give this type of examples. In fact, for your information, I don't have an education background. In the last 20 years, I have always been in the medical school. Before going back to Hong Kong, I was associated in looking after research in a medical school in Melbourne, Australia. So I've always been in medical school. And I am also an adjunct professor in the Shanghai University of Traditional Chinese Medicine, because I help them, I teach them how to conduct research in acupuncture. Yeah. Okay, so let me give you this example. This professor, doesn't matter what this person is, but he was a professor in the United States. He had an interest in finding whether acupuncture is effective for the management of chronic pain. Chronic pain here, for example. So before he conducted his own research, He looked at he read papers. In that particular year, he was able to find 51 papers. All these were talking about acupuncture and chronic pain. So 51 papers altogether by that particular year. Instead of reading the abstract, I know people are busy. Many people just read the abstract. And if the abstract said, yes, significant, effective, then continue to read. If no significance, not effective, just throw it away, not reading. Many people like that. This professor, this American professor, different. He said, I will not look at the results or the abstract, but rather I will give a score to each paper. So for each of the 51 papers, he checked the quality of each study. Now how to check the quality, I will show you later on. But he checked the quality of each paper. And for each paper, he gave a score between 0 and 100. 0 means very poor paper, rubbish, throw away. 100 means the paper was very well conducted, well written. All right. And out of those 51 papers, he used 50 as the cut point. So 50 or above, 50 greater than 50. So 51 or above, pass. 0 to 50, fail. Okay? Out of 51 papers, only 11 papers had a score greater than 50, which means only 11 papers passed. Wow. That's roughly 20%. And more shocking, the highest score for all the 51 papers, the highest score was only 62. I do not know what is the passing mark here in Russia, but in Hong Kong, sometimes 60 is the passing score. What is your passing score here in Minden University? 60? 50? 60. All right, so in that case, many papers actually fail. Now, this implies that the quality of the papers were quite poor. Now, we need to think. If you are reading a paper of poor quality, will you believe the results? I do not know about you, but I will not. I will only believe a paper, or believe the results presented in a paper, only if the paper has high score, good quality. So that was the time that people start thinking about good quality papers. In other words, if you want your paper to be publishable in a good journal, I tell you what, for me, people ask me why I can publish 220 papers. I told people that for papers that I wrote or I collaborate with colleagues, I usually give a score to my own paper. And if the score is high, I submit. If the score is low, I revise. Revise before I submit. You may want to ask me, why do you do so? Why do I want to look at my own score of my own paper? Is that because editors of journals, do they use this kind of scoring to score the paper before they accept the paper? Probably no. But they use the same concept. They don't score, but use the concept. So even though they do not give a score to each paper, for each paper, they look at it and qualitatively try to calculate something here, but not a number. And then if qualitatively that is a good paper, then they accept the paper. Do you understand? Yeah? So many people then ask me, how do I score? How do I give a score to a paper? I want to score my own paper. I want to see my paper high score or low score. So can you teach me how to give a high score or low score to a paper? That's why I am here today. Do you want to continue?
Yes.
All right, okay. But before that, some people said, Professor Low or Sin Kai, you are talking about only 51 papers. You are talking only about acupuncture, which is one form of traditional Chinese medicine. We are not in medicine. We are in education, or maybe in behavioral sciences, in social sciences, not in Chinese medicine. But this is Chinese medicine. So can you first of all convince us that in addition to Chinese medicine, some other areas are also using this? All right, okay. If you want to ask that question, here. Roughly the same, okay, it was this year. So roughly the same year. Another American professor, he conducted a similar investigation. He and his team looked at more than 4,000 papers. So the other one, 51. Now more than 4,000. And all these 4,000 papers were published in very high impact factors journals. Impact factor, right? The highest that I published, the highest impact factor journal that I published was 52. And so I know what they look for. Again, for this professor, he looked at not the abstract, not the results, not the conclusions, rather the study design, the data collection, and the analysis, which means basically the middle part of the paper. Usually, normally the paper starts with an abstract, and then introduction, and then methods, and then results, discussions, conclusions, something like that. And so this professor and his team looked at the middle part and using the middle part to give a score to these 4,000 papers. Guess what? Do you want to know the result of his investigation? Even if you say no, I will show you. In his study, only 20% met assessor's criteria for validity. You know, English, I mean, I'm a Chinese, you can see I am Chinese. So English is my second or maybe third language because I speak Cantonese in Hong Kong, and in mainland China they speak Mandarin. So for me, English probably is the third language. So English is difficult for me sometimes. You know why I think it is difficult? English is difficult because this sentence, I can understand every single word. But when the whole sentence, I don't understand. Basically, the whole sentence means 20% pass. Easy. Remember, in the acupuncture example, 11 papers pass. 11 papers out of 51 was roughly 20%. Now 4,000 papers, still 20%. That is not too surprising, but more shocking, this part more shocking. Let us try to understand this part a little bit better first. Okay, this part. 80% of those inadequately designed or analyzed reported positive results. First of all, what do we mean by, or what does he mean by positive results? Positive means if your objective is try to find whether a new teaching method is better than the old teaching method, and if the result is yes, it is better, it's positive. In medicine, if you want to see whether acupuncture is better than just massaging, and if it is better, then positive result. Anyway, Positive result means something that you hypothesized, that you want to see that is better. Okay, this is the meaning of positive. So what does the whole sentence mean? Inadequately designed or analyzed means the design was poor, the analysis was not appropriate. So basically the methods was poor. So basically inadequately designed or analyzed means a failed paper, failed. 80% of the failed papers reported positive results, which means if you are reading a paper that is a poor quality, then very likely that paper will give you a positive, will tell you that the result is positive. However, only 25% of those adequately designed or analyzed reported positive results. That means if a paper is passed, if that's a good paper, good quality paper, design good, analysis appropriate, then only about 1/4 will report positive results. So, when you read papers, be careful. When you read a paper that is reporting a positive result, it's more likely that it comes from a poor quality paper, which means that you should not believe it. So my own interpretation of that is, for some researchers, the reason why they want to do this research is not necessarily because they want to find out the truth. Maybe only because they want to tell you what they want to tell you. They want to tell you that this is good. So they just do a research. No matter how poor the research is, they just say it is good. Do you understand? So this is why from that time, roughly the 1990s, from that time, journal editors and journal reviewers are now more and more careful about the quality of the paper before the paper can be accepted. Because if they continue to accept papers which are poor quality, then the results could be misleading. All right? So now you know why it is now not easy to get published in international journals, because when they look at your paper, no matter how promising the results are, no matter how relevant the results are to your country or to your city or to your university, if the paper is of poor quality, no way. So if you want to increase the chance of publishing your paper in an international prestigious journal, you better know how to make a judgment on the quality of the paper. And one way to know how to make the judgment is to know how to give a score to your paper. And a good score, high score, submit. Low score, try not to, because you probably will be wasting your time. In fact, when your paper is not accepted or rejected, it could be very damaging, at least psychologically. I have many colleagues, you know, when they have the papers rejected, for example, if they submit a paper, suppose this is a paper, they submit to the journal, the editor writes back and say, "Dear colleague, I would not like to read your papers anymore." You will find very discouraging. And many people just forget about the paper and never publish again. This is bad. And that's why I hope that after listening to my talk today, we still have roughly 1 more hour, then you can start thinking how to write a good score paper. Okay. So, continue? Yeah. In fact, the way to give a score to a paper has a special name. The name is called critical appraisal. So critical appraisal is not only to read the paper, not just read. It actually requires some assessment. You assess the quality of the paper, which indirectly you are assessing the strength of the evidence. And that's why a high score paper is important, because high score means good quality, which means the evidence is stronger. Critical appraisal. There are different types of critical appraisal. So you may ask me, Professor Low or Sim Kai, I want to learn critical appraisal. I want to learn a scoring system so that I can give a score to my paper. Can you teach me how to score? Yes and no. Because to give a score, you have to understand you have to know what sort of studies you have first. In other words, if you have a qualitative study, or if you have an intervention study, then the way to give a score to the paper will be completely different. You may want to ask me, how many different scoring methods are there in the world? Nearly 200. Many. Do I know everything? No. I know some. I don't know everything. No one knows everything. So, before you want to know how to score your paper, first of all, you have to know what sort of studies that you are conducting. In education studies, I know that some of them will be using qualitative studies. Some of them are no intervention, just observational studies. And for some papers, they don't do any study on intervention, but they want to establish the reliability and validity of a questionnaire, for example. So measuring instruments, etc., etc. So, tell me, for research conducted by you in Minden University here, what type of studies are more common? Do you use quantitative methods more, or do you use qualitative methods more? Do you conduct observational studies, or do you conduct intervention studies? Or do I need to tell you more about each type of study? Do you know what is intervention study? What is observational study? Do you know those first? Yes or no? Yes means what? Means I have to tell you what is intervention study, what is the difference between the two, or yes? All right, okay, let me spend 10 minutes. Okay. Because I was in the medical school, so I will use a medical example, but I hope the medical example is simple enough to understand the concept. Okay. About 15, 20 years ago, my colleagues and I were looking for reasons or some factors associated with lung cancer. Now, this is not my study. I just give you an example, right? Not my study. But lung cancer, people thought, oh, maybe because of smoking. Smoking may be associated with lung cancer. So they want to find out whether smoking is associated or smoking will cause lung cancer. Now, if you want to find that out, one way that you can do it, one way, okay, not the best way, but one way you can do it is you find two groups of people. One group, ask them to smoke. One group, don't smoke. And then keep smoking, no smoke. Follow them for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and then in 20 years' time to see whether the smoking group will get lung cancer and the no smoking group, no lung cancer. Right? That's conceptually correct. Now, if you do that, that is called a prospective study. Prospective, a cohort, which means you start from point 0 and then you follow them. So that is a longitudinal study, cohort study. A cohort study is good if that is for treatment. If you want to see acupuncture is better than massaging, that's okay, because you can get two groups of nurses, one group with both back pain, two groups both with back pain, and then one group acupuncture, another group massage, and then maybe 2 months, 10 months, 1 year, the acupuncture group better, the massage group not so better, right? Maybe. Then you can do it because you're helping them. So that is called prospective study. But if you want to find out the association between lung cancer and smoking, you can't do it because it is unethical. You will not get ethics approval, you will not. So what you normally do is to get two groups, one group with lung cancer, another group without lung cancer. So you get the people at the end of the outcome. One group with lung cancer, one group no lung cancer, then you ask them, have you been smoking? How long have you been smoking? How many cigarettes do you smoke on average? Have you ever quit? If yes, did you take up smoking again, etc., etc. So you ask them many questions related to the way and the quantity, the way they smoke and the quantity they smoke. Hopefully, you will find that the lung cancer group, they smoke a lot, they have never quit smoking, etc. And they smoke many cigarettes, maybe of 2 or 3 packs a day. And the no lung cancer group, hopefully you find that only few of them smoke, and they usually smoke just 1 or 2 cigarettes a day. And then this is the way that you hopefully can find the association between lung cancer and smoking. This kind of research, because you are starting from the end with lung cancer and trace back to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, so this is trace back. So you call this a retrospective study. Retrospective means, retro means going back. The way you do the critical appraisal, the way you score your paper will be completely different if you have a cohort study or if you have a retrospective study. Very different. Right? For your study, do you use questionnaires? Yes? Yes, many of you do, questionnaires. Of course, if you are using a questionnaire that was originally designed by an English-speaking country, for example, America or United Kingdom, then you may need to translate the instrument from English into Russian. Or if you want to design a new questionnaire for your population, you are creating a new questionnaire, you first of all have to validate your questionnaire. Even the translation from English to Russian, you have to validate. And validation normally means that you have to test the reliability and validity of the questionnaire. Do you know the difference between reliability and validity? I'll tell you the difference now. Suppose I'm a patient. I want to see a doctor. Okay, I go to see a doctor. But before I can see the doctor, usually there's a nurse who would like to check my blood pressure, maybe check my temperature, something like that. Or if necessary, I may have to go through some blood test or something, urine test, something like that. Okay, all right. One day, I went to see the nurse, and she asked me to wait for the doctor because the doctor is very busy. She asked me to wait. I had nothing to do. So I tried to see how heavy I am. So this is a scale. I step on the scale to see how heavy I am. Okay. Suppose I'm 100 kilograms. Of course not. Suppose I'm 100 kilograms. First time step on it, 100. Ah, good. Very accurate. Excellent. But because I have nothing to do, so I step on it again 5 minutes later. I did nothing. Just sit there and wait. And 5 minutes, I come back. Wait again. This time, 60, not 100. Oh, great. This is if you want to join a weight reduction program, you better use that scale. In 5 minutes time, your weight drops by 40 kilograms, 60. So you may say, wow, that's no good, no good. Can't be. Oh, why? Then the third time, I step on it again. This time, 140. So you may say, look, this is really very, very bad scale. Because my true weight is 100. But I step on it 3 times, it was 100, 60, 140. So you say this is no good. But I say this is good because 60 plus 100 plus 140 divided by 3 is 100. So that means on average, this is very good. On average, this is very good. You don't believe me. You say, no, you are cheating. This is tricky. Then you are a scientist. You are a good researcher because if this is a good scale, the scale should give you 100, 100, 100. Or maybe even if slight difference, 100, 99, 101, something like that. Because the first time, the second time, the third time, the difference was so large, we say that this scale has very low reliability. Then what is the difference between reliability and validity? Okay, so now I have a different scale. This is a different scale. I step on it 3 times. Remember, I'm 100. That one no good. 60, 100, 140, no good. So I step on this one. That one no good because the variation was very big. Right? Okay, this one. 29, 30, 31. So you say, this is good because the 3 times, 29, 30, 31, very consistent. So this is good. This is good only in terms of reliability. But on average, because 29 plus 30 plus 31 divided by 3 is 30. So this one, even though the reliability is good, on average, it is not giving the correct answer because the correct answer should be 100. So we say that this one has poor validity. The difference between reliability and validity is reliability usually refers to how consistent it is. It could be the consistency from time to time. It could be the consistency between different raters. For example, if I am a patient, this is Dr. 1, this is Dr. 2, this is Dr. 3. Each one of them use the same instrument to assess my disease. And she gives me a score, she gives me a score, she gives me a score. And if the 3 scores are very different from each other, then that measuring instrument is not reliable. So reliability can be the same machine many, many times. It can be the instrument by different raters. Understand? So if you are trying to validate a questionnaire, you need to check the reliability and validity. You want to give a score to how good the instrument is. The scoring method for reliability and validity different. That's why I say you really need to understand, to know what sort of research, what type of research that you are conducting before I can teach you a method to score. Now we have only one and a half hour today. That's why I asked the gentleman sitting here whether we can use the internet, because I can give you a reference to the internet that if you are interested in what I have just told you, I will tell you more, I will tell you more. But if you are basically interested in what I have told you, I am now going to the internet and show you something that you can go to that and read the details later if you want to know more. Okay, so can I use the gentleman? Can you help me to use the internet, please? So I can just, where is Google or Firefox? Firefox, okay. Oh, Google is okay. Google is okay. All right. Is that Russian or English? Oh, that's okay. That's okay. That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay. Now, I don't understand Russian, so I will show you English. Okay. In English, can you see CASP? So what you need to do is, when you go to CASP, go to Google or to Firefox and just type CASP. And then next to it, you write critical, remember critical appraisal. Remember the term? Critical appraisal. So, critical appraisal. Here, CASP, critical appraisal. Okay? Click. Now, you will see critical appraisal skills. Don't worry about the program. Skills means there will be different skills for you to conduct critical appraisals, which is a sort of a website in the United Kingdom. So let's go into that. What does it say? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay. I thought it says stop. No. Okay. All right. Now, on this in this website, you see print, you see edit. My suggestion is to use this because you can download these files. All right. So this one you can download. Now, I understand that many educational research are qualitative studies. So, if you want to know how to give a score to qualitative studies, this is what you need, qualitative study. So, basically what you need to do is just click that and just download. I have already done that, but I will show you later. It takes a bit of time to download, okay? So this is download, and you see that those are some questions for you to answer, and then after answering the questions, then you get a score, something like that. I'll show you the details later, but this is what you do, okay? Now, let me go to the PowerPoint, the PPT, the PowerPoint file, and then come back to this later. Before that, maybe, if you are, remember I said cohort study? If you are conducting a cohort study, this is the one you need. Okay, good. What is your area? Curriculum, educational leadership, linguistics. Okay. What is your area? The same? What is the same? What is? Linguistics. I thought the same means a new area. What is your area? The same. Who is not the same?
Methodology of teaching English.
Teaching English.
Yes.
Okay. Astronomy. Economics.
Astronomy.
Astronomy. Anyone different? The same? Anyone in educational research, or everyone in educational research? Linguistics is also one form of educational research. Okay. Many people ask me, they said, Professor Low, I look at this, but I cannot find educational research. I want to know the critical appraisal. I want to know a scoring method for educational research. Where can I find it? The answer is, you cannot find it. No such website. Then they ask me, then what should I do? You show me a website, and then you teach me how to do cohort, you teach me how to do maybe a qualitative study, but mine is educational research. What should I do? in order to help you, or in order to help those people who ask that question, I show you something else that I have done. In this folder, Mini, that I created, go to Mini, you will see one thing, one file called manuscript, EDUC, which means education. Let me open. This is a paper prepared by my PhD student, under my guidance, under my supervision, my PhD student. Tools, that means scoring methods for quality of educational research. That means if you want to learn more about what are the scoring methods available for educational research, this is a paper that was prepared by my student under my supervision. And I will be happy to just leave this paper here for you to read if you are interested in reading. Okay? Now, this paper is quite long. I will not go to this easy. It's quite long. So, and at the end of the paper, it's very long. She spent 1.5 years writing. And towards the end, I'll show you. Oh, very long, very long. This is how you write a good paper for a prestigious journal. 1.5 years for one paper. Okay, so you can see that there are many, many tools available. And for each of the tools, they will also tell you whether this particular tool is using quantitative method or qualitative method or mixed method. Many. All right. So, and also, no, many. And also for each of these tools, here, there are some descriptions of the details. And if you want to find the original paper of with each of those two, the reference list, there is a reference list. The reference list was given earlier here. Here, right. So there's a RIP. So if you would like to learn or at least to know more about the scoring methods for educational research, I personally feel that this is a good source for you to learn something. So today I only have a bit more than 1 hour, even though I still have half an hour. I will continue, but I know that within 1.5 hours, it is not possible for me to tell you many, many things. So one objective or one aim for me to be here is not necessarily to teach you everything, but at least, first of all, to give you a broad concept, and then give you some references. Depending on your research interest, also the website for you to go into to look for some details. Good? You know, in Hong Kong, when I teach my students, we need 13 weeks, each week 3 hours to teach everything. So 1.5 hours here, not possible. But if you would like to know more about this, you are welcome to just read it. Or if you really want to practice, to learn to practice, come to Hong Kong. Sit in my class. I can give you tutorials 1 week, next week, each week, one tutorial, teach you how to do it, 1 instrument, 2 instruments, 3 instruments. Okay? Or ask your rector to invite me to come back more often. Okay? Now, is that useful?
Yes.
Okay, now let me continue. Okay to continue?
Yes.
Are you too tired? Okay. I have gout. You know gout? Gout means the uric exit. Uric exit in the bones are very painful, so I have to take a medicine. So please, okay, I need to take medicine. Okay, very painful.
You want one? You want one?
Okay. Let us now use one or two examples to show you how do the scoring methods look like. Now, these two examples may not be your research area, may not be, but just to give you some ideas. Okay, now, here I am giving you one example, which is the example of a scoring method for intervention studies. Intervention means you have some treatment, because I use acupuncture as an example, right? Okay. I said total mark 100. How is the 100 distributed? The 100 is distributed according to 4 major categories. The 4 major categories are study design with a maximum possible of 47 marks. The intervention itself, because I will show you each one later on in detail, but intervention itself, 21 marks. How effective? So the effect is 19 marks, and the data presentation and analysis, 13 marks. If you add up this 1, 2, 3, 4, if you add those 4 numbers, it should be 100. In other words, which part has the highest possible maximum score? This part. Correct? So, before you ever even consider publishing your paper in a good journal, if your study has a poor design already, if you have already finished your data collection, you have already done everything except the writing. In fact, there is not too much you can do. So, when I was working in a medical school, many medical doctors asked me to help them to write, or help them so they can write a good paper. And sometimes they come to me and I said, no, because your study design was already so poor that out of 47 marks, you can get only maybe 5 or 10 marks. So even if you can get high score in these 3, the maximum you can get maybe is about, let's say, if you have 0 mark here, the maximum you can get from these 3 is only 53. And if you have some marks deducted from each of these categories, then it is very likely that your paper will drop below the 50, which means fail. So study design is of utmost importance. That's why, please, if you want to write good paper in good journal, you really need to start thinking at the very, very beginning. Some people ask me, now my paper has been rejected. Can you help me to revise the paper so that it can get accepted again? Sometimes I can, sometimes I cannot, depending on what was your original study design. Okay? Alright, so let's go into 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4 categories in more detail, more deeper. Is my English okay? Is your English okay? You hope so. You're a linguistic teacher. Are you a linguistic teacher?
Yes.
Yes, so your English must be good.
I hope so, yeah.
And your Russian is better than your English?
Well, of course.
Of course.
I'm a native speaker of Russian.
You're native speaker? You're all native speakers of Russian?
Yeah.
Anyone here can speak Chinese? A little bit. 你好吗？
我很好。
你很好，我也很好。Okay. I was saying, how are you? And she said, I'm fine. And I said, yeah, I'm fine too, okay? I'm teaching you Chinese. Where did you learn your Chinese?
Here at university.
Oh, you have Chinese here?
Yes.
Okay. Chinese here. Oh, you didn't go to Beijing, huh?
Not yet.
No, okay. Anyway, okay. Have you been to Hong Kong? Have you been to Hong Kong? Yes, good. Yeah. I will talk to your rector and try to ask him to send you to Hong Kong. I provide accommodation, free accommodation to you. Hong Kong real estate is very important. It's very expensive. Do you know? Hong Kong apartments, very, very expensive. Most expensive in the world. Yes. Not only expensive. Hong Kong apartments is very small. You know that? No. I have to keep this size in order to enter my apartment. Alright, okay. Alright, okay, so please. I said study design a maximum of 47 marks. So how is the 47 marks divided? It is divided into some subcategories. The first subcategory, 6 marks. The second subcategory, 11 marks. The third subcategory, 9 marks, etc., etc., etc. So, when you, doesn't matter, okay, doesn't matter. Even if you don't understand, doesn't matter. The main idea is, for each scoring method, there are big categories. Within big categories, there are small categories. So, when you look at the scoring method of your research type, no matter what that is, you try to look for the high scores. So you do better on the high scores subcategories. You understand? This is how you can get eventually a higher score for your paper. If this is an example, suppose you have an intervention study. Suppose you have 2 teaching methods for teaching linguistics. One is called method A. One is called method B. You want to know which method is more effective in helping students to get a good mark in the examination. Then your research better use the method of randomization, which means you get a whole group of students, randomly divide them into the method A group and method B group. That's why I said sometimes when some medical doctors came to me asking me to help them to revise the paper, I say no, because when you have 2 groups, when we have patients, you did not divide the patients randomly. It's nothing I can help. You have already treated the patients. But if you come to me earlier, I would have told you that you should use randomization. You understand? So sometimes why some papers are revisable, some papers are not revisable. You know, every study has limitation. No study is perfect. But my recommendation to you is you try to look for those. If you cannot get perfect, try to sacrifice those which are smaller marks. What are smaller marks? Sometimes some marks, 6 marks. Sometimes some marks, 6 marks, but this is 15 marks. So you do better for the 15 marks, correct? All right? Now, because this is an intervention study, I will not go into the details with you because it may not be your research. But let me go to the website. Remember, on the website, I downloaded a file. Remember, that's called qualitative study. Why don't we look at that? Because that probably is closer to your research than this. I use this as an example only because I want to show you that 100 marks is subdivided into different categories. I just want to show you that some categories are more important than others because they have higher possible marks. Okay, good. Now, this one I have already downloaded, which is some paper. Here, this I have already downloaded qualitative checklist. So let me open it. Okay. Now these I will not go over because these are just descriptions. You read it yourself. Let's go to the questions. Okay. This particular checklist is asking you 10 questions. For each question, the answer is either yes or no or can't tell. If the answer is yes, then you get 1 mark. If the answer is no, or if the answer is can't tell, you get 0 mark. Okay? So, this is how you read others' paper. But same logic. You use this same logic to read your own paper. Or even before you write your paper, you try to ask these questions and say, look, when I have not written my paper yet, but if I write my paper, will the answer to the first question be yes or no or can't tell? And I want to make sure that it is yes. Okay? This is how you prepare. These questions are not very difficult questions. For example, for question number 1, was there a clear statement of the aims of the research? That means you only need in your introduction, somewhere in your introduction, you write down very specifically what is the aim and what are the specific objectives of your study. Isn't that easy? You get 1 mark already. 1 mark out of 10 is 10% already. So many people think, oh, Professor Low, writing in journal, in prestige journals must be very difficult. Not really. If you know the rules of the game, it's not easy. It's not easy, but not as difficult as many people think. All right, so this one is easy. I believe many people can get a yes here. All right, let's look at the second question. Second question. Can you see that from the back? Is it okay? Okay. The second question is, because this is on qualitative studies, so is a qualitative methodology appropriate? Now this is more difficult because, first of all, qualitative methodology is only a broad term. There are many methods that are classified as qualitative methods. You can have a focus group, right? You can use grounded theory for your study. I mean, there are many methods, I'm sure. Do you have to learn research methods in your bachelor and master's degree and doctoral degree? Yes? Mm-hmm. They are broadly classified as quantitative methods and qualitative methods. And quantitative methods, you have statistics, you have something else, and qualitative method, you have something blah, 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 yes? So, this is a more difficult question because you really need to know some technical details about qualitative methods before you can justify that a qualitative method is appropriate for this study. This is not easy. Sometimes, why we need co-authors, why we have 2 or 3 or 4 or even more authors in the same paper, because maybe I am a good educational research expert. Maybe I'm a good medical doctor, but I am not a good person in methodology. That's why in many cases that I worked before, many people invited me to join their writing paper team so that I can provide and advise to them which particular method or methods will be appropriate for their study. So this seemingly an easy question is actually not an easy question. Okay? Now this scale is either yes, no, can't tell. I know another scale, not here, but no, I did not bring that scale, but I know another scale. The answer can be yes, no, can't tell, or partially yes. Partially yes means some of the, because in one paper you may be using more than one research methods. And maybe some of the methods are appropriate, correct. Some other methods that you use are inappropriate, not correct maybe. So there could be a fourth category here, partially yes. Now if you get partially yes in that particular scoring method, you will get 0.5 marks. You will not get 1 full mark. It's possible. That's why I told you there are nearly 200 scoring methods. Even for qualitative studies, this is not the only scoring method. But that's all right. This is the if this is the first time you hear about these scoring methods, then I'm sure you probably will go to the web and then look for more. And if you are interested in this, you will spend more time learning. And then maybe next time I come, you already know more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the way to start. Now please answer my question. Who today is the first time that you hear about this type of scoring methods? If this is the first time that you hear about, please raise your hand. So all others, you have already heard about that already. Yeah, so which particular tool do you use? All right. Tool, but this is a tool. Yeah. So which tool do you don't know, all right? So anyway, you might have heard about tools, but I hope that after the talk today, even if you have heard about this before, today you have a better understanding. Today you know at least where to find more information and to investigate more how to use them. What are the theories behind? What are the logics behind? So that next time when you write papers, don't think about papers first. Think about design first. Okay? All right, let's go to the third question. All right? The third question. The third question: was the research design appropriate to address the aim of the research? That's the same. It is a very easy question, but not easy to answer. How many designs are there? You have to know. So even though I said only 10 questions, some questions are seemingly easy but rather complicated. Because if you don't even know how many different types of design, you don't know whether the answer is yes or no or partially yes. And that's why in our master degree and doctoral degree, it is compulsory for our postgraduate students to learn 2 full semesters of research methods. Just the design, 6 hours. Just the statistics introduction, 3 weeks introduction, and then 5 weeks of intermediate, and then 10 weeks of advanced, etc., etc., etc. So actually, if your background in methods is not strong enough, you will not be able to answer some of these questions. And that's why it is not easy to be an editor or reviewer. I mean, I'm still an associate editor of some international journals. I have been reviewing papers for many, many years. For those people reviewing papers, they must know different types of design. They must know different types of analysis, etc., before they can review papers. The fourth question. Fourth question. Was the recruitment strategy appropriate? What do we mean by recruitment? Maybe let me ask you a question. Remember in the intervention study, the randomization was a very high score, right? Remember? So randomization means randomly divide people into the treatment group and the experimental group. Let me ask you, let me test you. Suppose I want to randomly divide you into two groups. She is the first person, suppose. She is the first person coming in, so I say group A. She is the second person coming in, so I say group B. The third person A, the fourth person B, so A, B, A, B, A, B, you understand? So depending on who's the first, second come in, I assign them to A, B, A, B, A, B accordingly. Question, is that randomized? Is that randomized? If your answer is yes, it is randomized, then you are incorrect, you are wrong. So the first patient comes in A, second patient comes in B, third patient comes in A, etc. It is not randomization. Now, of course I can explain to you, but I am not, because the main purpose is not to explain to you randomization. The main purpose is even something like randomization, which is very important. Many people do not have a correct understanding of randomization. So sometimes you may think that, oh, professor, I did randomize. Why I do not get the 11 marks? Because you did randomize in a way that you think randomized. It's not in a way that scientifically it is randomized. Okay? That's why understanding methodology is so important when we are considering writing. So as you can see now, this particular checklist, it really does not matter whether you are in linguistics, or you are in astronomy, or you are in something else. Anyone from educational psychology? No? No, okay. Anyone from educational management? No? Anyone from mathematics, STEM education? STEM education? No, doesn't matter. You're all from linguistics. That's because only people from linguistics can listen to English. Too bad. Maybe next time you get some other people, educational leadership, STEM education. I speak, you translate for me. Teach them.
Why you promise to speak in Russian?
I can speak in Russian, yes, but they will not understand my Russian. Yes, I can speak Russian, no problem. It's the problem of them not understanding me. Okay, all right. Yeah, I want them to learn. So you can help me to translate. Yes, can you? Yes, and I can help you to revise your paper. Good? Deal? Okay. Now, so far, let's go to the number 5, question number 5. Was the data collected, etc.? So you see, I will not go over all the 10 questions, but now you can see each question. It doesn't matter where in STEM education, whether you are from linguistics, whether you are from educational management, etc. All these questions can be applicable to any background, correct? Because they are only talking about how you conduct the research. It is not very, very specific to the particular research questions that you are asking. That's why even this gentleman comes from astronomy, which my understanding is quite different from linguistics. No problem. He and you hopefully both benefit from this talk regardless of your background. Understand? Okay. Let me show you something a little bit slightly different from this one. I have 5 more minutes. She just told me, is it okay that I go over a little bit? Go over a little bit, okay? Then they're not in a rush? No, they're still young. At 5? Oh, every time it goes. Okay, now I am now showing you something which is to compare one paper with another paper. Okay. Now, in this table, don't worry about the actual studies, but in this table, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 papers. Each paper, the author's name is written here. Okay. So these are the surname of the first author. They are all conducting the similar research of acupuncture and back pain. Okay, remember? Okay. And I have used an instrument that consists of 23 questions. The example I gave you on qualitative study, only 10 questions. But that was only one of the many available scoring methods. In this case, I have used another scoring method that consists of 23 questions. For a question, the answer yes, he will get a score of 1. For the answer is no or can't tell, it's either 0 for no or a question mark for can't tell. Okay? And if the answer is partially correct, partially right, then 0.5 marks. If the answer is not only no, it's completely wrong, too wrong, it's -1. So it can be minus. Minus means it's actually wrong, wronger than wrong. Right? It's too wrong. Okay. Understand? Right. And NA means this particular question is not applicable to this particular study that I am trying to find out. All right? Understand? Okay. Now, you can see that question number 8, all NAs, because this is not a question that is relevant to this particular view. So number 10, number 8, both out. All right. Then also, a question mark, can't tell. I must still give it a score. Should it be 0? Should it be -1? Should it be 0.5? Should it be 1? Well, because can't tell, we can't say that it is wrong. We just can't tell. So a can't tell is also given a score of 0. Right? Okay. Now, the total here means you add up all the numbers here. NA, don't worry, take away. NA, take away. Question mark 0. Question mark 0. Okay? So you add up all the scores here. The total score for this paper is 12.5. All right? The total for this paper is 6.5, etc. And because there are a total of these many questions, because some questions are not applicable, so the maximum total score is take away this, etc. So you divide 12.5 by the total possible mark, and that is 63%. It will give you a percentage. Now you can get a percentage so that you know some percentage very low, say 33%, because the total is only 6.5. So by looking at this percentage, which should be a number between 0 and 100, you can now compare the quality of the studies. So out of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out of these 7 papers, the highest quality is this one, which has a score of 75%. The lowest, the poorest, the lowest quality one is this one, which has a score in percentage 33%. So now, if I use 50 as the cut point for pass, fail, I can see that this one failed, this one failed, the others pass. If I use 60 as the cut point, in fact, this one also failed, this one, depending on whether 60 is fail or pass, but probably this one is fail because 61 above is pass. So now, by using this way of getting a percentage score, it doesn't matter how many questions in the scoring methods. It can be 10 questions, it can be 23 questions. At the end of the day, you have a total score, and you just divide the total score by the number of questions you have, you still get a percentage. And the percentage is always between 0 and 100%. So you can always get a number, which is a 100 sort of number, and you can use the 50 or 60 as a cut point. And this is how you can compare the quality of the papers. In fact, suppose this gentleman will do something on his area astronomy, and this lady will do something on literature, linguistics. I told you, you definitely will see a substantial difference between the scoring method, the scores of different areas. For example, educational psychology. There are more high score papers. Educational psychology is very high. Now, I'm not going to tell you what is low because that's very, very damaging. But some areas are higher than some other areas. And I will tell your rector that I would rather work with people who are the low scores because I want to add value. I want to help them from low to at least not so low. I mean, if they are already high, good. I can congratulate them. I can continue working with them. But it's the low people who really need our help to bring them up. Okay? I'm not going to say which area. Linguistics is quite low. Okay? Now, from now on, if you have the chance, please go to the web, that CASP, and try. There are the many checklists. Please, not just the questions. Please read the instructions before the questions. You remember there are some instructions. Read that, and in fact, the website CASP has more information than just the checklist. So even when you have finished reading the checklist, please also read other parts of CASP because I believe they give you many good knowledge about. Do I have to go? No. Okay. Yes. So the CASP does give you many good information about how to get a score for a paper, and based on how to get a score, you know how to get a good score, which will help you to write papers being accepted by good journals. Good. Now I think I'd rather stop here because some of you might have other commitments. If you are interested in listening to my lectures, I am more than happy to come back. And in fact, I do have a lot more things to hopefully teach you. And not just to teach. I really thought I am an outcome-oriented person. The teaching is only the part of it. The outcome part, I hope that I had a meeting with your rector just before I came in. And I told him that the reason why I have chosen this topic as a speech today is because in addition to working with your university in developing a double degree program, and you may or may not know, but that's the matter. That is one reason, but perhaps a more important reason at this level is I really want to work with his colleagues, which means you, on producing more high quality papers in good journals, because we all know that the ranking of a university partially, not all, but partially depend on how many good papers you can publish in prestigious journals. So if you want to be part of the group that helped the university to get a higher QS ranking, please do consider writing more good papers. And I am very happy, very pleased to work with you. I have 220 already. It doesn't matter whether I have one more or one less. Really, honestly, I'm not trying to show off, but one or two more for me means nothing. But for some younger colleagues, younger researchers like you, I mean, I'm sure you're very, very good researchers because when I came in, I smelled something good. Must be you. And so, for you, if you really want to write something good in good journals, I will be more than happy to work with you. If you find it, happy to work with me. And I will stop here, and thank you very much for your attention.
Для них это очень важно. Они не могут Привет, Николай Иванович.
Давайте главное сложить, мы сейчас с ним
Да.